Capitol Hill was louder than usual that morning. Reporters filled every corner. Cameras were fixed on the hearing room. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be a normal ethics session. Chief Justice John Roberts was set to testify. But no one expected Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett to walk in and take her seat at the panel. She wore a navy blue suit and a calm but sharp expression. Whispers moved through the chamber. Her name wasn't originally on the schedule. Her sudden appearance felt like a warning shot. The public didn't know it, but this hearing was about to turn explosive. The topic was judicial ethics, something dry on the surface, but under it was a boiling question. Had the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest bench in the land, been touched by corruption? Justice Roberts sat still, his face unreadable. He was known for his steady tone and measured answers. The hearing began with regular questions and noters asking about gift disclosures and travel policies. Roberts answered politely, giving nothing away. But when it was Crockett's turn to speak, the mood in the room shifted. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she began, eyes locked on Roberts. "Justice Roberts, let's talk about public trust in the judiciary." He nodded slightly. "Of course." She smiled, just barely. "Do you agree that transparency is the cornerstone of a functioning democracy?" "Yes, absolutely," Roberts replied quickly. "Then would you be willing to tell this committee if you've ever received funds for private speaking events without proper disclosure?" The room went quiet. No more coughs, no shuffling papers. Even the cameramen paused. Roberts didn't flinch. "Congresswoman, every speaking engagement I've participated in has followed legal guidelines." She raised a single sheet of paper. "That's interesting because this document acquired through a publicly available IRS report shows a $200,000 payment from the LCC Institute dated last September. That payment does not appear on your disclosure forms." Gasps rippled through the room. Someone dropped a pen. Journalists outside began typing furiously. Roberts blinked once. "I'd have to review the document you're referencing, but I assure you," Crockett interrupted, "you're under oath, Justice. Either it happened or it didn't." He adjusted his glasses, voice slower now. "Again, I'd need to review this document." "I'm not aware of such a payment." Crockett leaned forward. "Then you're saying this $200,000 doesn't exist?" "I'm saying I can't confirm something I haven't reviewed," Roberts said. Crockett didn't let up. "Is it possible that this money was funneled through third-party entities to hide its true origin?" The room erupted. The chairman slammed his gavel. "Order. Congresswoman Crockett, please keep your line of questioning appropriate." Crockett looked at the chairman, then back at Roberts. "I'm asking what millions of Americans are thinking. Can we still trust the Supreme Court if its Chief Justice can't account for large payments from politically connected organizations?" Roberts didn't respond. His silence said more than any answer. Outside the building, the media reaction was instant. News channels cut away from regular programming. $200,000 mystery rocks Supreme Court. Read the breaking news banner. On CNN, Al Jazeera aired the exchange live with subtitles. Social media exploded. #Roberts Scandal was trending within minutes. Inside the chamber, the chairman called a 5-minute recess. People rushed out, phones to their ears. Some reporters began chasing Crockett down the hallway, shouting questions. She didn't stop to answer. She didn't need to. The look on her face said it all. Meanwhile, Roberts remained seated. His aides whispered to him, pointing at the document. He nodded, but didn't speak. For a man who had spent decades controlling the temperature of legal debate, this was the first time he looked unsure. Backstage, political operatives started making calculations. Would this be seen as a partisan ambush or a long overdue reckoning? In a nearby room, a senior producer for a major network whispered to her anchor, "We just got confirmation. That payment exists, and there's more where it came from." Within hours, Crockett's clip had reached millions. On TikTok, it played with dramatic music. On YouTube, legal experts broke down every second of the exchange. On cable, analysts debated whether Roberts should recuse himself from upcoming cases. But in one corner of the world, a man in Brussels watched with more than just curiosity. He clicked on the LCC Institute's website, then smiled. The real story, he thought, hadn't even begun. And in Washington, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly in her office, staring at a second file labeled Confidential International Ties. She knew this wasn't just about one judge or one payment. It was about a system, okay? And tomorrow, she would open the next chapter. The nation wasn't ready. The next morning, Washington, D.C. was electric with tension. Every major newspaper ran the same story on the front page: $200,000 payment rocks Supreme Court. TV screens across airports, gyms, and coffee shops replayed the same 10 seconds: Jasmine Crockett confronting Chief Justice John Roberts with calm intensity. The moment he froze. Inside Capitol Hill, the hearing chamber was busier than ever. Security had been doubled. Protesters gathered outside, waving signs that read "No one is above the law" and "Roberts must resign." Meanwhile, journalists pushed through crowds, trying to get quotes from staffers and aides. Justice Roberts arrived through a private entrance. He looked tired. His team was quiet, and no one smiled. He avoided the main hallway, dodging cameras. He was scheduled to continue his testimony that morning, but this time, everyone knew the tone would be different. Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, walked in through the front entrance. She waved politely, but said nothing. She had spent the night reviewing documents, talking to whistleblowers, and preparing for the storm she knew was coming. The chairman banged the gavel at 9 a.m. sharp. This hearing will now resume. We ask that all members keep their tone respectful and focused. Justice Roberts raised his hand. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address yesterday's line of questioning before we proceed. The room went silent again. I have reviewed the document presented by Congresswoman Crockett, Roberts said, voice steady but softer than the day before. The payment from the LCC Institute did occur. It was for a speaking engagement in September. However, the funds were routed through a third-party event organizer. I was advised it did not require disclosure. That advice was mistaken. I accept full responsibility. Gasps filled the room. Even some committee members looked stunned. Crockett nodded slowly. So you agree the disclosure was incomplete? Yes, Roberts said, but not intentionally misleading. Crockett didn't smile. She flipped to another page in her folder. Chief Justice, are you aware that the LCC Institute is partially funded by a lobbying group registered in the Cayman Islands with connections to offshore energy deals? Roberts blinked. No, I was not aware of that. Well, Crockett continued, our investigation suggests the speaking fee was more than just a paycheck. It was a gateway for influence. A wave of murmurs rolled through the chamber. A reporter from The Guardian scribbled something fast. MSNBC anchor texted her producer, dig into Cayman Group now. The chairman interrupted. Stay on topic. Crockett looked directly at Roberts. This is the topic. Mr. Chairman, if foreign-linked organizations are using third parties to funnel money to Supreme Court justices, that is a direct threat to our national integrity. Roberts looked down at the table for the first time. Crockett pressed on. Justice Roberts, did you discuss any pending cases with the LCC Institute organizers during or after the event? He hesitated. No, absolutely not. She raised an eyebrow. Did anyone affiliated with them contact your chambers afterward? I don't recall, Roberts said. Suddenly, another panel member, Congressman Paul Benton from Kentucky, spoke up. Congresswoman Crockett, are you suggesting Chief Justice Roberts is compromised? Crockett didn't flinch. I'm saying we should investigate whether the Chief Justice, knowingly or not, accepted money from organizations attempting to influence legal decisions in this country. That's not compromise. That's conflict. The room exploded again. Reporters dashed out to file breaking updates. Producers whispered into microphones. Every second was live. Outside, the protests grew louder. One group chanted, "Recuse or resign." Another shouted back, "Witch hunt." The divide was clear, but the momentum was now with Crockett. In her office later that day, Crockett sat with her chief of staff, Marcus Wells. He handed her a USB drive. This came in through the whistleblower hotline. "You're going to want to see this." She plugged it into her laptop. A series of emails appeared, dated just 2 weeks before the September event. One email from a senior LCC organizer to another staffer read, "Payment approved." Reminder, the Justice's team prefers quiet transfers. No direct mentions of LCC on materials. Also, ask if he'll take a question about the energy equity ruling. Crockett's eyes widened. "This proves intent," she whispered. "They weren't just paying for a speech, Kay. They were testing influence." Marcus nodded. "And it gets deeper. It's that Cayman-based lobbying firm. They've hosted events attended by 2 other sitting justices. Same pattern, private payments, no clear disclosures." Crockett leaned back in her chair. "This isn't one scandal, it's a system." A knock on the door interrupted them. A junior aide stepped in, holding a white. By the 3rd day of the hearing, the entire world was watching. It wasn't just national news. Any Marine international media had joined in. BBC, Al Jazeera, and Deutsche Welle had set up temporary news booths just outside Capitol Hill. The words $200,000 showdown were trending across every social media platform. Political influencers debated nonstop, while lawyers and ethics professors were interviewed around the clock. Jasmine Crockett's sharp questioning had changed the tone of the investigation. Now, more secrets were beginning to rise to the surface. Inside the hearing room, everyone could feel the pressure. Camera lenses zoomed in as Chief Justice John Roberts entered the room. His face was tense, and though he remained composed, he looked less confident than usual. Crockett, on the other hand, looked focused and calm. She wore a dark navy suit, symbolic, perhaps, of how seriously she now viewed this hearing. Her phone buzzed in her purse. It was Marcus, her chief of staff. Marcus texted, "We confirm the email's authenticity. LCC organizer is under quiet. FBI observation. You've got momentum. Push forward." The hearing began. The chairman nodded to Crockett. "You may proceed with your follow-up, Congresswoman." She spoke slowly and clearly. "Chief Justice Roberts, I would like to revisit your statement from yesterday where you said you had no knowledge of the LCC Institute's funding ties." He nodded. "That's correct." She tapped her tablet and motioned to the staff. A screen lit up on the wall behind them, showing the leaked email. This message was sent by senior LCC organizer Philip Royce. It confirms that not only did they manage your $200,000 speaking fee through quiet transfers, but also intended to discuss a specific Supreme Court ruling, the energy equity case. The room fell silent again. All eyes were on Roberts. "I have never made decisions based on external pressure," he said. "And I did not receive that email." Crockett raised her eyebrow. "Understood. But are you aware that your longtime law clerk, Thomas Keene, did receive the email and was on that same speaking tour with you?" This time, Roberts didn't answer right away. He leaned toward the microphone. "I did not ask Clerk Keene to handle communications. He sometimes coordinated travel, but I never approved outside discussion of active rulings." Crockett nodded slowly, then added, "Mr. Keene submitted a letter of resignation early this morning. He has also offered to testify voluntarily before this committee." A loud murmur broke out across the room. Reporters began sending rapid texts. A CNN anchor whispered, "This just broke live." Keene flipped. Roberts' face turned pale. The chairman interrupted. "We'll recess briefly." The committee stood up. Crockett didn't move. She watched Roberts as he leaned in to talk with his attorney. Back in her office during the recess, Marcus was already waiting. "You did it," he said. "Now Roberts is boxed in." "I don't want to humiliate him," Crockett replied. "But I do want the truth. And the American people deserve to know who's pulling the strings behind the court." Marcus handed her a new file. "There's more. Offshore company behind. LCC is also tied to major oil lobbying firms in Europe. They've been influencing courts quietly for years. And now they see this court as vulnerable." Crockett opened the file. There were photos Roberts shaking hands with LCC executives at a private dinner in Zurich. Flight records, Caymans, matching dates. It was a web, and it went deeper than anyone had imagined. An hour later, the hearing resumed. Everyone returned to their seats. This time, Roberts looked directly at Crockett. "I would like to clarify something," he began. "If my former clerk acted outside official guidance, then I welcome an inquiry into that. However, I have always maintained strict ethical standards despite what these emails suggest." Crockett didn't back down. "Then you won't object to a full review of all court-related travel and payments made to you and your chambers in the last 5 years. Roberts paused, then nodded. "I will cooperate." And just like that, the balance shifted. It was no longer a confrontation. It was the beginning of something bigger. Full investigation into judicial influence at the highest level of government. Outside, the public was still divided. Some called Crockett a hero. Others accused her of destroying tradition. But no one could deny the facts were real. That evening, on the steps of Capitol Hill, Crockett gave a short press statement. "This is not about politics. This is about the truth. We owe it to the Constitution and to every citizen who still believes in fair justice." A young reporter shouted a question. "Are you planning to pursue charges?" She replied, "We're pursuing answers, and we're not done yet." As she walked away, her phone buzzed again. Marcus text, "Whistleblower wants to meet in person. Says there's a recording Zurich meeting full audio." Crockett didn't even hesitate. "Set it up," she told him. Right. The storm was only just beginning. Night had fallen over Washington, but the city was far from asleep. Jasmine Crockett's car moved quietly through the back streets of Georgetown, avoiding the usual routes. Inside, her heart was racing. Sat beside her, checking his phone again and again. The whistleblower and LCC financial analyst named Elias Corr had agreed to meet in a private location. He had claimed to have a recording of the Zurich meeting that could prove Chief Justice Roberts had direct knowledge of the lobbying money. It was risky. But the story had already crossed a line. If what Elias had was real, everything could change. They arrived at a quiet bookstore just off M Street. The shop was closed, but the back entrance was open. Inside, the lights were dim. The smell of old paper hung in the air. A figure stepped forward. Tall, thin, wearing a coat too big for him. "You're Congresswoman Crockett?" he asked. "Yes." She said, "You're Elias." He nodded and glanced around nervously. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "It's all here. Audio, emails, wire instructions. I didn't know what they were doing at first, but when I realized the company I worked for was paying judges to speak at energy summits, I couldn't stay quiet." Crockett took the drive. "Why now?" He looked at her. "Because you're the first one who didn't blink." They thanked him. Marcus promised federal witness protection. Elias disappeared into the dark. Back in her office an hour later, Crockett and Marcus sat at her desk. The flash drive was plugged in. They hit play. The voice was clear. Chief Justice Roberts in casual tone. "Let's not make it obvious. Keep the figure under institutional speaking fees. We're here to discuss the implications of regulation. Nothing direct, understand?" Then came the reply from an LCC executive. "Of course. But the outcome of the energy equity ruling could affect trillions. Seem to be aligned, Judge." The room fell silent. The recording ended. Marcus spoke first. That's it. That's corruption. No other word for it. Crockett nodded slowly, still processing. The next morning, a storm hit Capitol Hill. Crockett walked into the hearing room carrying a sealed manila envelope. Reporters sensed something was different. She didn't greet anyone. She went straight to her seat and waited. The chairman opened the session. "Congresswoman Crockett, you may proceed." She stood, voice steady. "I have new evidence submitted by a whistleblower from the LCC Institute. This includes a verified audio recording in which Chief Justice Roberts discusses payments and expected judicial outcomes in a private off-the-record meeting." The room exploded. Reporters shouted. Members of the committee turned to each other. In shock, Roberts said nothing. The chairman banged his gavel. "Order! Order in the chamber." Crockett placed the envelope on the desk in front of her. "This recording will be authenticated by the Forensics Bureau within 24 hours. But I've already heard it. I believe it raises serious questions about influence, neutrality, and the future of this court." Roberts finally spoke. "Request to hear the recording now." The chairman hesitated, then nodded. The audio played. Every second felt like a hammer dropping. When it ended, the chairman looked stunned. "This is unprecedented." Roberts stood. "I want to clarify. My words in that recording, I did not mean," but Crockett interrupted. "With all due respect, Chief Justice, we've heard enough. This isn't about interpretation anymore. This is about facts." He froze. The cameras caught the moment. His lips pressed together. His hands trembled slightly. Crockett added, "I am formally requesting a special investigative panel to review all judicial financial interactions with lobbying groups, including but not limited to LCC." The chairman nodded slowly. "Request noted." The panel will convene. Tomorrow, the hearing ended. But the drama didn't. Outside, the media was in chaos. Legal scholars were already on air calling this the biggest ethics scandal in Supreme Court history. Protesters gathered outside, some holding signs in support of Crockett, others accusing her of attacking the institution. Roberts left the building under escort. He didn't look at anyone. Crockett held a short press conference. "Want to make this clear. No one is above the law. Not even the highest judge in the land. If we lose faith in our courts, we lose faith in our democracy." A young reporter asked, "Do you think this ends with Chief Justice Roberts stepping down?" Crockett didn't answer. She just looked at the Capitol dome behind her and said, "That depends on what happens next." Later that night, she sat in her office, exhausted. Marcus poured coffee. Neither of them spoke for. Jasmine Crockett sat alone in the Capitol office, staring at the message on her phone. "There's more." Geneva, 2018. Roberts wasn't alone. Her mind raced. Geneva. Another international meeting, and who was with him? Marcus entered quietly, holding a folder. "Jasmine," he said, closing the door behind him. "There's already backlash. Half the committee is being pressured to dismiss the hearing as a misinterpretation of language. The White House isn't saying a word." She looked up, eyes sharp. "So they're trying to bury it." He nodded. "But it won't be easy. Your press conference exploded online. Millions have seen it. Protesters are marching outside the court building right now." She handed him her phone. "Read this." He frowned as he read the anonymous message. Then he looked at her. "You think this is real? We can't afford not to find out." By noon, Jasmine had contacted a trusted journalist, Tariq Sharma, known for his work exposing global corruption. He met her in a private cafe 2 blocks from the Capitol. "I need help tracing this," she said, sliding her phone across the table. "Geneva, 2018. Anything involving Justice Roberts? But I have to keep this off the official radar for now." Tariq leaned back. "You're taking on the entire judicial system." She met his eyes. "Then I better not miss." Hours later, Tariq called her. "Jasmine," he said breathlessly, "I found something." She put him on speaker so Marcus could hear. There was a private conference hosted by the Global Democratic Values Forum in Geneva in 2018. Sounds harmless, right? But get this, the guest list was mostly corporate lawyers, oil executives, and a few foreign legal consultants from Russia and the UAE. And yes, Chief Justice Roberts was there. So was Justice Kavanaugh. Marcus muttered, "Another justice. That changes everything." Tariq continued, "There's no video or transcript of the sessions, but I found a leaked itinerary and one blurry photo." Jasmine, you're in dangerous territory now. That evening, Jasmine stood before the oversight panel again. She carried a second sealed envelope. The atmosphere was even tenser than before. Security had been doubled. Protesters could be heard chanting outside. The chairman looked uneasy. "Congresswoman Crockett, we received your submission. But we need to be sure this isn't crossing jurisdiction." She didn't blink. This isn't about jurisdiction. It's about justice. The committee leaned forward as she continued. "I've received new information suggesting that Chief Justice Roberts and potentially other justices attended a closed door meeting in Geneva in 2018 with international corporate lobbyists and foreign legal agents. If true, this may represent a breach of constitutional ethics and national security." She paused. "In this envelope is a leaked photo from that meeting, financial statements from 2 associated trusts, and a list of attendees that includes individuals currently under federal investigation." The room was dead silent. The chairman cleared his throat. "And you believe this is connected to the $200,000? Crockett nodded. "I believe it's much bigger. The money was a symptom. What we're looking at now is a web of international influence designed to sway U.S. judicial decisions." Roberts, who had sat quietly in the hearing up to this point, finally spoke. "This is absurd. You are dragging this court into conspiracy theory territory." Crockett turned to him. "Explain the Geneva meeting. And why you never disclosed it under your required ethics report." Roberts' face stiffened. "That meeting was informal." She pressed on. "You were photographed sitting with Ivan Raskova, Russian legal broker, sanctioned by the Treasury just last year." "Informal." He had no reply. The chairman whispered something to a clerk. Then he looked up. "I'm ordering an immediate suspension of this hearing until further legal advice is obtained. This is no longer routine oversight. This is potentially a federal investigation." The cameras were cut. But the news spread within minutes. Outside the building, a CNN anchor breathlessly summarized what began as a routine ethics hearing has just transformed into a full-blown judicial scandal. Allegations now include international influence, undisclosed finances, and involvement of multiple justices. This is a constitutional earthquake. Back in her office, Jasmine received another message from the anonymous source. "Be careful who you trust next. Roberts is only the beginning." Marcus looked over her shoulder. "This is getting dangerous." "I know," she replied. "But if we stop now, they win." Later that night, a surprise statement was released from the Supreme Court's Public Information Office. Chief Justice Roberts strongly denies all accusations. He confirms he attended international legal conferences as part of his duties, but has never accepted inappropriate payments or engaged in unethical discussions. He will not resign. Crockett read the statement on her laptop, her jaw set. "So he's going to fight." Marcus said we knew he would. But what they didn't know, what no one could know, was that Jasmine's next step would change not just the outcome of this scandal, but the very structure of the court itself. Because the Geneva evidence was just the beginning. The real secret was buried in a private trust registered in the Cayman Islands, and that secret would shake the nation. The rain hit Washington hard that morning, but inside Capitol Hill, the pressure was even heavier. Jasmine Crockett stood by her office window, watching the storm. The message from the night before echoed in her mind. "Be careful who you trust next. Roberts is only the beginning." Marcus entered quietly, holding a brown envelope. He placed it on her desk. "It came from Tariq," he said. "No digital trail, no email. Said this couldn't be sent online." She opened it slowly. Inside was a set of documents, banking transfers, offshore trust paperwork, and one shocking name: the Halifax Dominion Trust beneficiary. J.R. Holdings Us. Jasmine's eyes widened. "J.R.," she whispered. "John Roberts." It was a trust account based in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary name had been disguised, but Tariq's note said it matched Roberts' handwriting from a 2005 federal document. Marcus looked at her. "This isn't just about speaking fees anymore?" She nodded. "This is about hidden wealth, hidden influence." By afternoon, Jasmine walked into a closed-door emergency session with members of the House Ethics Committee. She placed the documents on the table. Faces around her stiffened as they scanned the pages. One congressman leaned forward. "Are you saying the Chief Justice of the United States has been moving undeclared income through offshore accounts?" "I'm not saying it," Jasmine replied. "The documents are," another member asked. "And where did the money come from?" "Some of it," she said, "is tied to legal seminars funded by foreign energy companies. Others, anonymous shell firms." The room went silent. Then the committee chair spoke. "Congresswoman Crockett, if this is true, we may be looking at articles of impeachment." The next day, every major news network opened with the same headline: $200,000 turns into $2 million. Offshore wealth tied to Chief Justice John Roberts raises constitutional alarm. Public reaction was instant. Protests grew. Legal scholars filled news panels. Journalists dug deeper. The story had grown into something historic. Outside the Supreme Court building, angry crowds gathered. Some waved signs saying "No justice for sale." Others demanded resignations. Security was tightened across Capitol Hill. Jasmine, meanwhile, had received another message. This time, it wasn't anonymous. It came from Justice Sonia Sotomayor. It was a single sentence: Meet privately, midnight Eastern Hall. That night, Jasmine slipped past reporters and security to a quiet corridor inside a historic wing of the Capitol. Justice Sotomayor stood alone, coat draped over her arm, her face unreadable. "I can't speak publicly," she said softly. "Not yet. But I need you to know some of us have been watching this for years." Jasmine asked. "Years?" "Roberts isn't the only one with connections to these trusts," she said. "But he's the most protected. I warned him in 2019. He told me it's not illegal if no one finds out." Jasmine felt her stomach turn. "I'm afraid," Sotomayor said. "But I'm more afraid of what happens if this goes unpunished." She handed Jasmine a handwritten letter. "This is from an anonymous former clerk. It confirms what you found." "And there's more someone in Congress knew, too." Jasmine's breath caught. "A cover-up." Sotomayor nodded. "Be careful. You're closing in. That's when they strike." Back in her office, Jasmine opened the letter. The clerk's words were detailed. They spoke of meetings in private D.C. townhouses, judges mingling with wealthy lobbyists, sealed case decisions being shared in advance. One part stood out. A justice once changed a ruling after receiving a call. The case involved foreign oil money. It was 5-4 until that call. Jasmine knew what that meant. The highest court in the land possibly compromised. The next morning, she held a press conference. She didn't use her usual passion. Her voice was calm, cold, direct. "The United States Supreme Court," she said, "is meant to be the final word on justice. But today, I bring evidence that suggests at least one member of the court may have sold that justice to the highest bidder." The room exploded with questions. "Are you accusing the Chief Justice of corruption? Do you have enough proof? Will this lead to impeachment?" She answered with a phrase no one expected. "This is no longer just an oversight hearing. This is a crisis of democracy." That night, Roberts released his own statement. He denied the offshore account, claimed the documents were misunderstood, called it a Jasmine Crockett walked slowly down the quiet corridor of Capitol Hill, her heels echoing against the marble floor. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a sealed envelope. The final piece. Inside were sworn statements from 2 former Supreme Court clerks, a wire transfer log, and a recording from a confidential informant. All of it pointed to one truth. Chief Justice John Roberts had hidden funds through offshore accounts. But now Jasmine knew something even worse. The rot went beyond him. She entered the oversight chamber, already packed with press, lawmakers, and staff. The hearing room buzzed like a beehive. Protesters could be heard outside chanting, "Protect the court, not the corrupt." Across the room sat Chief Justice Roberts. Calm on the surface but pale beneath the lights. He looked straight ahead, not once glancing at Jasmine. Chairman Holland banged the gavel. This committee reconvenes for final remarks regarding the ethics investigation into the Chief Justice, he said. We begin with Congresswoman Crockett. Jasmine rose. She paused, looking at the cameras, then the panel. I want to be clear, she began. This is not about personal revenge. It's not about power. It's about truth. She held up the envelope. Over the past week, we've discovered documents, witness testimony, and banking records suggesting that Justice John Roberts may have violated the foundational trust of his position. Gasps filled the room. The chairman raised a hand, signaling order, but Jasmine wasn't done. These aren't just rumors or political jabs. These are official logs of speaking payments routed through the Halifax Dominion Trust. Beneficiaries include accounts labeled JR Holdings, confirmed to match Justice Roberts' handwriting, and known associates. She paused to let it sink. A Supreme Court justice took money through offshore channels connected to legal lobbying firms, many of whom had cases before his court. Roberts finally looked up, lips pressed tightly. And it doesn't end there, Jasmine continued. We have proof that members of this very body, she looked around the panel, received campaign donations from those same firms. Days after decisions were made, a reporter from CNN whispered to a colleague, "This is history." Chairman Holland turned to Justice Roberts. Chief Justice, do you have a response? Roberts stood slowly, his voice steady but quiet. The accusations made here today are dangerous. They threaten the balance of our government. I deny any wrongdoing. But do you deny the bank records? Jasmine pressed. Huff. I have never personally managed an offshore account, Roberts said. If someone acted in my name, I was not aware. Jasmine stepped forward. Then, how do you explain this? She played the secret audio recording. Roberts' voice was unmistakable. We'll filter it through Halifax. Use JR Holdings as the veil. Nothing traces back unless someone talks. The silence in the room was deafening. Chairman Holland whispered to his assistant. Phones buzzed. Journalists typed furiously. Chief Justice, the chairman said carefully, are you willing to cooperate with an independent investigation by a special counsel? Roberts stared at the table. I will consider it. Jasmine turned. To the cameras, I want every American watching to understand this isn't just about John Roberts. It's about whether the most powerful judges in the land can be held accountable. They can take hidden money, make secret deals, and silence whistleblowers. Then our democracy is broken. She looked over at the younger staffers in the room, some of whom had tears in their eyes. I stand here not as a partisan voice, but as someone who believes in the Constitution. If we don't clean this up now, we lose something we may never get back. Outside, the crowd had grown. Police surrounded the building. Protesters held signs. No justice above the law. Impeach Roberts now. Thank you. Jasmine back inside. The chairman made it official. This committee will now forward its findings to the Department of Justice and recommend a full criminal investigation into the financial conduct of Chief Justice John Roberts. The room erupted. Some clapped, others shouted. Roberts quietly gathered his notes and stood. But before he could walk away, Jasmine spoke one last time. "Justice Roberts," she said gently. He stopped and looked back. "I didn't want this. But you made it necessary." He nodded slowly, almost sadly, like a man who finally understood the weight of what he'd done. The cameras followed him as he walked out of the chamber, past a crowd of angry citizens and into a waiting black car. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. Hours later, breaking news ran across every channel. Breaking Chief Justice John Roberts steps down amid $2 million offshore scandal, DOJ. Confirms federal inquiry. Jasmine returned to her office, exhausted but calm. Marcus handed her a cup of tea. "You did it," he said. "You took on the Supreme Court." She shook her head. "I didn't take on the court," she said. "I took on corruption. The court just got in the way." He nodded. "What now?" She looked out the window where the sun had finally broken through the storm clouds. "Now," she said, "we fix the rest." As the credits rolled on every news show that night, Jasmine Crockett's name was no longer just trending. It was history. And the message was clear. No one is above the Constitution, not even